is there any American president, how about we could do this, in the existence of America, that you would have either endorsed or told people not to vote for? So now looking back, is there anything there?
From the pulpit?
Wait, well, that's
Yes.
No.
Okay.
From the pulpit, no, because
No.
That's what I'm kind of bringing up. Like,
that is against our. I'm a kind of firm believer in the you obey the laws of the land. I signed up
sure.
to
I've
create
driven
but
with
also-
you.
Well, but also
in things that matter.
And I don't speak from the pulpit, but if I was attending, what I would want to be, where I draw that line of where I'm comfortable, what I'm hearing.
And I would say they attach it to discipleship, to be honest
Right,
with you.
right.
I don't, but I think, well, if you're really a follower of Jesus, you would vote for or not vote
And
for.
I don't think it's as targeted as that. I think that's probably where I draw the line, is in regards to hey, vote for this person, as opposed to guard your heart, be sober minded,
or
research.
even, hey, we're doing a class on a Wednesday night
Right.
to give you the ins and outs of all these issues because we think it's very important. So if you were able to do a really even-handed, you sit down, here's the pros and cons of proposition whatever, and then here's the pros and cons of these candidates. Kind of what I ask my sister to do all the time, and she does it beautifully, is she says, here's what the issue is actually saying. I had to do that with minimum wage because I thought the minimum wage one was weird. And I'm like, wait. And then she just explained it so plainly. And I was like, oh, clearly what I want or don't want with that.
And I said no. I don't mind telling people. I was like, no.
Yeah, I said no immediately.
This is a horrible.
Inflation's at a horrible rate
You're
right
doing
now.
this the wrong way.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude.
You're stuck.
Minimum wage is not
You
gonna
just
happen.
added more money on all the goods that you're about to
Right.
buy.
That's
You're going to kill the small
doesn't make
businesses.
sense.
That's exactly what it is. But I do think that we should allow people to make up their own mind.
Right.
Sure.
I think it's really, really weird when a church tells you specifically who to vote for.
Because
That is totally
with
weird.
authority of God. Even if you don't say God's
no,
authority,
that's-
you represent
it's-
Him.
yeah.
It's
You're representing
terrible.
him.
Yeah.
That's a terrible thing to do. That's not our wheelhouse. Again, if you as a pastor say, man, these issues are very important to me, I'm going to teach a little separate class over here where I just teach the concepts or
Right.
the details, and then you get to make up your mind. I don't think that's bad.
You could align it with, depending on what you're studying through, biblical references to the political state at the time, between the Romans and the Jews or something like that, and then allude it to the modern day.
Yeah. It would just be weird to me to be specific about it. And
Sure.
maybe I'm wrong.
Sure.
And again,
Oh, I think it's weird.
If it gets
totally
bad
weird.
enough, if there were things that were a really big deal where I'm like,
Well,
hey,
even the what'd you call it? Baby deleted.
baby deletion.
Yeah.
If that became even more, you'd be like, okay, now this feels like when there was the version of baby deletion where the baby was partially born.
Oh, yeah.
We were talking about that, and there was a candidate who had voted for it 11 times. I'm like, I'm not from a pulpit, but I was
Right.
like, I'll tell you, I know, I'm like, please look at their record on this.
Yeah.
That is just, this is, if you haven't been convinced this was murder for a long time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
please
Yeah.
get to this level. And at minimum, can we agree on this part?
Yeah.
That this is murder. Which, by the way, goes into another question that I had on there, which is one of the candidates, I'll say who it was. It was Kamala. She said that you can be a Christian and be pro baby deletion. So how
heard
do we
that.
feel about that? Is that a possibility? So now we're going into this idea of it's politics, but it's also in our field of morality.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we live in the canceled universe anyway.
I would never. Yeah, absolutely.
By the way-
we've
By the way,
never.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, Vice
Of course.
President Harris. I know some people are saying
Yeah,
that's.
yeah.
I call him Trump instead of
yeah,
former
I-
President Donald Trump.
Formality of
Yeah, Vice President Harris.
But also, everybody
She does-
settle
I know,
down.
I know.
I do think we it's way too touchy right now. Everybody settle down.
So that's
We as pastors, we really do love everyone. I
Right.
love Kamala. I want to see her saved, and I
Right.
want to see her regardless of her issues, regardless of her policies that I agree or
we can
disagree
separate.
with.
We can separate the jet
That's
from the
easy for
person.
I really appreciated when Trump was on the Rogan podcast, which was a really fun episode to watch, that he said, I'm still going to, Trump's obviously saying how he feels about how she'd do on the podcast. And Rogan's like, I'm going to talk to her like a human
Yeah,
being.
I appreciate
And
it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, that is exactly what you
Come
should
on.
do.
Well, because he's not political. He actually, and
Which
if
he
you think
shouldn't be.
about it, which I thought was interesting, is the whole time I was like, Rogan is more concerned with his podcast success than he is the politics of the country.
Totally.
And I went, interesting.
That's the only word for it, is interesting, because this government.
Otherwise, you would endorse who you think should do it.
Right.
And he's not doing that.
That's a great business decision in the immediate.
Oh, my gosh.
But is it a great business decision in the long run? Because one side of that was a big part of trying to get you canceled on Spotify.
100%.
So it's like,
Right.
is this a long-term play? Smart.
But he also does know that his viewership is so vast
Right.
that he's probably like, I don't want to alienate a whole demographic.
I mean,
Which
what he's trying to do. But no, it's smart. It's smart. It's interesting.
Right. So that was a little tangent, but back to the
So my opinion
deletion.
is that you
I also want to affirm what you
absolutely-
said about like loving her. Just wanted to, because I thought that was a good point. We literally are talking about how somebody does a job, not their value as a human.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. I
Yeah,
thought that was a
and
good point.
That's good. I actually do think there are plenty of people that would disagree with me on this. I think you can be a Christian and think and believe almost anything else that is exterior, that is...
Not the resurrection. Is that what you're basically saying?
Yeah. And I'm like, you could be so wrong.
So
in
you're saying
so
not
many
necessarily-
other
And
things.
let's define this.
So not necessarily righteous, but you can believe whatever you want and still believe Christ
We're
is Lord.
talking about salvation going to heaven.
Yeah.
It's funny, but
Versus
is that what she
a
was talking
Christian,
about?
exactly.
Is that what she was
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about? Because we all know this. Like, listen, you can get saved and have your theology just grows,
Well,
right? You can
yeah.
have bad theology. You could grow up in this super left-leaning family, and all the stories about baby deletion have all been these heroic moments,
Yeah.
and Planned Parenthood is all this great place,
Yeah.
and so you get saved, and so you have these really warm thoughts about this, and then now you're like, well, maybe this isn't right, and you start to change. So it's not that you weren't saved, but what she means
If
is
she does
living.
mean that,
ri-
yeah.
it's implied that I can live a righteous life, as you were
Yeah.
saying. Like, I'm going to go to heaven. Can I live a righteous life and be in
Right.
right standing with
And
God in
goes
my
to
actions?
sermon lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
This actually smacks right on the message.
Yeah. And I would then ask, what is that person's understanding of baby deletion? Because I actually think there has been, especially over the last 5 years that I have seen, a huge shift in what is understood in the process and the viability of what a human life is. When does life begin? That discussion's been had for a long time. I thought we landed real clearly on when life began.
Yeah.
And even the potential of life. I just heard a conversation with Ben Shapiro and some students. It was a Jubilee thing where, he had the 30 liberals around him and he debated them all.
Oh,
It was-
Charlie Kirk.
no, Charlie Kirk did it also. Ben Shapiro's
did Ben
done
Shapiro
it.
do one? Okay.
And a few other. Actually, I
haven't seen that one.
Destiny did it also, which was interesting because Destiny was surrounded by conservatives. And
Oh.
they're all interesting and stupid all at the same time. But
Yeah.
so it was interesting because this one girl sits down and she's like, I actually don't think it's baby deletion and she was like trying to redefine words, and Shapiro's like, what are we even talking? He goes, fine, you're talking semantics. Let's not use that word anymore and just define it the way we want to define it. And she basically said, yeah, no, but I think it's all about viability. And because he said the same thing that everyone always says is, what about somebody in a coma? She goes, well, they still have brainwaves, and if they wake up, they'll be viable. And he goes, exactly. And if this baby goes to completion, it will be viable. Like, what are we talking about? So
Yeah,
for
that's
her,
the Bill Burr cake batter.
it's going to become a
Right.
cake.
It's
Yes,
going
absolutely.
to be
It's so good.
If you throw it on this, like, but it
threw it
was
across
going
the floor.
If it would have been a cake, it's pretty
It's really
brilliant. If you
good.
don't know what
It's
we're talking
brilliant.
about, it's the
Yeah.
look at Bill Burr baking
So
a
I'd say
cake.
Bill Burr and who's the young kid? The Flagrant podcast. What is his name?
That is your guys' wheelhouse.
He's one of Joe Rogan's like lackey guys. I can't remember his name. Great comedian. He does. There's a few guys who have bits just like that I think are pretty profound, and they might even say they might get to the end of it and go, I still think you should be able to, but just know that this is what we're talking about.
Well, that's also the Bill Maher who's saying, I
Another
believe
Bill
this
Maher's
is
another one.
murder. He goes, but I'm okay with it.
Okay, and that was.
But
oddly
he said it
telling.
in a different way.
He did.
right.
That was the implication, though, right?
Yeah, that was the implication,
Okay,
but
I was making sure
He
I'm
was
clear.
he was much more flippant.
He was.
It was, but maybe it was in the moment when he said that, but it was also like, oh, this is not something to be flippant
But
about.
also, you have a microphone in front of you,
Right.
So
And
in the moment,
So
millions of
I
people-
would, to answer that question, can you be a Christian and still be okay with or support baby deletion, or even be a righteous Christian? Let's say. I would then have to. It would be such an individual basis where I would want to sit down and be like, what is it that you are saying?
Right.
Because if you're simply saying flippantly any term, no matter what, with no
situation.
parameters, I'd be like, we have some conversations to have. And I still think you probably could do an amazing work as a Christian and still be righteous in a lot of areas. That would be such a weird, glaring discrepancy with the view of Scripture.
Right.
That I'd be like, how do you depart so clearly from Scripture
Yes.
and church tradition
Well,
throughout history?
Church tradition and traditions of others that have. I mean, if you are a Christian and you're reading into biblical history, it's like, oh, this is not the first time this is happening.
No,
I think the answer for me is, because I know a lot of Christians on different political spectrums, and so they lean towards the rights of a woman or the different things, and these people love the Lord. So anecdotally, a lot of
absolutely.
people love the Lord. I would say that in this arena, you can be a Christian and either be deceived or naive.
That's why I was like
That's
a
how,
deeper
that's how I say it's like.
I agree.
So if you're on that side, I would say I think you're being naive or being deceived. That would be my. And again, I could be wrong, but to me, it's more cut and dry than most topics. And
I couldn't agree more that this is the one where I'm like, I don't even know what we're still talking about. And the one argument that I heard and when I first heard it, I was like, that's interesting. But it's you want to tell us what to do with our body, but there's nothing that we tell a man. Nobody gets to say a man. And I'm like, oh, there is plenty of stuff that we are constantly telling men what to do and not to do with their body. The draft is a great example. Like we're drafting people left and like we can potentially. And so I'm like, I don't think it's as simple as like, and the part that gets me is even with that argument, you're boiling it down to, it makes it sound like the side that wants to stop baby deletion, your real goal is that you want to tell us what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the least of our concerns. It's just, we're actually trying to protect the baby that nobody else is protecting. I do agree with, and I stand pretty firm on this, is the side that is pro-life works very hard to protect that fetus.
This is the
and then once that baby is born, they don't care anymore. And I'm like,
they want to get rid of welfare. They're pro capital punishment.
we should do a lot more
I agree.
after care.
I
in my
agree.
opinion.
It is it seems really hypocritical where you're like, all I want to do is save that baby's life. Great. Now that baby is born.
Now get to work, baby. You're like, jeez.
That baby's on welfare. We got to get these babies off welfare.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
So
like,
that part's a little bit.
Or this baby now is an adult and is going to get capital punishment. So I just think that's the part, and I hate that argument because I'm like, you're right, they are hypocrites. Let's get back to is this baby live or not?
Exactly.
The hypocrisy is real and horrible, but we're still about this baby.
That's why I don't like partisan lines.
There's also a really intriguing episode on live action. It was on YouTube, and it was the deletion providers sitting across the table with deletion survivors.
Oh.
And it was such a harrowing, sobering conversation.
I've got to watch that. That sounds crazy.
It was incredible. I mean, in the best way to say it, and it kind of just shows that the consequences for both sides, and there are people, and I think one of them I could tell was like a woman of faith who was a provider at the time, and they were aware of what they were doing, but it's their job, and so it's like. There's that ethical.
Get another job. I really am like
that ethical line,
what are
right?
you doing, man?
But then it's like, then again,
That's the
the
same.
grace of God is like there is still redemption in your
Are you
life.
looking for lightning bolts?
no. Why is our ceiling so disgusting?
The redemption for each person, as we talked about the humanity and still wanting to love everyone. I think a lot of it, unfortunately, is people are so focused on being right as opposed to discerning what is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't very political at the time when Barack Obama was running for office the first time. So I didn't know. I'm like, oh, I was like everybody else. I'm like, handsome, charismatic, interesting things. Mostly on the opposite side of me, of the very little political knowledge I had.
Yeah.
And at the time, I read this article, and it was in CCM or Christianity Today,
yeah.
one of the other ones. But they did this whole thing on like that Barack Obama's approach was going to be different than fighting Roe versus Wade or supporting Roe versus Wade. He was going to dump a ton of money into like the crisis pregnancy centers,
Which he did.
and so they'll be like, he didn't end up doing it.
No,
but,
not the crisis. He dumped money into Planned Parenthood.
Planned Parenthood.
right? He went opposite. It was supposed to be in crisis pregnancy centers to
Oh, I
create
didn't know that.
options for girls who are having pregnancy, and say like your only option isn't just to
Oh,
delete.
wow.
Your option is
He ran on that platform. I don't remember.
It was one of
that.
his things they talked a lot about. They did a whole article on it. I go, wow, that's very interesting. So he said, instead of fighting this one way or the other, let's just create more options for young women. And then that never happened. But I thought that is an interesting thing. I also understand the difficulty, all the different situations, but I still say I get all of that. This is still a baby. We're still talking about a baby.
Right.
Who can't defend itself.
That's what I can't figure out what we're talking about. Like I
and I've been
genuinely, I'm like, that's the bottom line, right?
and I've been a pastor long enough to see a gajillion people get pregnant and lose that baby.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's day 1 or month 8, they lost a kid. And that we're just trying to pretend that's not real. Like
And
that is
my
that
frustration is that argument has shifted of to whether that's a viable life or not, to the same reason that somebody who gets in a car accident who is pregnant, it's double homicide.
Yep.
And they say, well, that's because, and the reason that that's so traumatic for women in day 1 or week or month 8 is that baby was wanted. And I'm like, what are we? But that's honestly the
I
argument.
know
I've
it
heard
is.
countless
been
times.
some
I
recent-
go right.
Ruslan's episode with-
What are we
life,
talking
The
about?
moment we don't want a human,
Dude,
it's okay.
That's different, man. That changes
It is the weirdest conversation to me. I'm like, how is that even? How does that cross your lips without some sort of like knowledge and thought that goes, oh, wait a minute,
Your
that's
conscience.
a faulty argument.
Yeah.
It's just faulty. Just on a debate level, that's like I don't understand. It's like what your desire is changes
This
the
is,
law.
but it's going into that same realm that we've talked about before in the moral relativism and moral objectivity. Like it's like, oh, it's just whatever I make it. It's whatever I feeling at the time. It's but it's going to affect you, and it's
And even that argument is interesting from the other side, is that like don't tell me what is going to affect me or not. Like you don't get to make that decision for me. And I'm like, cool. Again, I'm only talking about this is a baby.
yeah.
I don't want to talk about your feelings or the desires or even the pressure on society, the weight and the financial responsibility. I'm not talking about any
All
of
of that, and now we still have a baby.
This is a baby, guys.
This is such a good example of the idea of love and truth. Like, man, I love you. This is hard. This will be difficult.
Yeah.
I am so sorry this happened. Named 90 different circumstances.
Sure.
I go, but that's still a baby.
And I would like to see society turn the corner and say, we are so empathetic towards the pain and struggle of this that we will now support. On
a crazy level.
When I do think there needs to be a larger conversation is, 98% of the time, you got pregnant because you voluntarily copulated with somebody, right?
Right.
Like, this wasn't an...
Yes.
I think we're at about 98% of the time.
Yeah, and the cases where it's like obviously the
2%.
right when regards to the other
Rape or
horrible
incest.
Yes.
again examples of evil where it's like
Yes.
yeah, I agree with you. That's nuanced,
Yes.
but the majority of it is
Smarter people than me can have that conversation.
Well, I was
I'll
going to
stick
say
in the 90% conversation.
Let's just, and I think this is what we need to do as a
can't do the
society,
2%. I don't
which
know
is
what's
what
smart.
but we're in the conversation anyway.
which is what a lot of other developed countries have done, is they've made a pretty clear decision on the 98%.
Sure.
And that's up until a certain trimester, and they make that very clear. Most developed countries, if not any besides us,
Is it the same?
do late term. We're the only ones who like having that conversation. The rest of them who are secular societies go, well, no, come on,
No, like
you can't do it a week out. What are you guys
18
talking
weeks or
about?
something like that,
This is-
or
yeah, it's whatever. And I
something?
can't remember.
Yeah.
So I would appreciate it if we as a society just said, okay, you're right. Let's deal with the 98%. Let's talk about the stuff that's obvious. And like make a decision on that we all agree on, because I think it's insane that we don't agree on that. And then go, hey, what do we do with these really difficult, nuanced
Now
ones?
now let's all talk about the hard stuff.
Yeah, where it's like, because you might be able to concede. I would probably concede, as horrible as this sounds. I'd have to do a lot more. I'm saying I would, but I'd be interested to know if I would concede that if you gave me the 98%, I might give you the 2%. Because I'm like, that's a step in the right direction. And I know it sounds
such a
terrible.
Stickler. I'm an all
I
or
know.
nothing guy.
I know.
Yeah, I
I'm
think for
horrible.
me,
I'm horrible, and I know it. And again, it's not my situation, but also personality plays in this, right? I'm a buck up kind of guy.
Yeah.
Cowboy up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
I get that.
Not everybody's like that.
except you don't camp. So
Right, that's right. Not everybody's like that. So to kind of have that attitude is everybody needs to be like me, and whatever horrible atrocities befallen you, still do the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Not everybody's equipped for that.
Sure.
They really are not. And some people, that might lead them to. So I get, there's
Yeah.
a lot of different elements in there.
Joe's just using
Self-deletion.
every word.
We've been
that we're-
canceled
so
forever.
this episode will never air.
yeah.
One of the things that's always gotten me is I don't understand why.
Which, by the way, is sad. That I
Oh,
can
yeah.
say any of these words.
Right.
And we're like,
Right.
we
Wow.
can't handle
The age of
words.
censorship
Please,
is
it's so
it's
stupid.
insane.
I don't understand why. So I get one side that says, look, a man can't have any say in what a woman does with her body. This is all up to the woman. And I go, I would understand that if it didn't turn the corner, if she decided to have the baby, that now he still doesn't have a say in whether he supports it or not. Like I've been
Right.
confused by he
Right.
can't say anything about whether she keeps or deletes the baby.
But he's obligated if she keeps it.
And I'm like, wait, what? Why at least give him a say? If he's obligated to pay money afterward, shouldn't he then have a say in the process also?
And
that's a separate topic, but it's very
It's
interesting.
such a weird thing because it's like what I want to do with my body, but I'm like, but the moment another body is
Where do you-
involved in this, it's like
That's the problem,
That
right?
is the
Like,
challenge, right?
It's
Like,
a separate
Where's that
DNA.
line? Where's that line drawn though? Like, what you do with your body? Like, hey, babe, put your seatbelt on.
Well,
It's like, don't tell me what to do.
We tell people exactly. So seatbelt. We tell people all the time, like drugs are illegal,
Right.
And the government
Like,
is
hey, babe,
regulating what
don't
you
do drugs.
can and can't put
You're
in
pregnant.
your body.
You're 2 weeks pregnant. Don't drink that drink.
I'm actually frustrated because I think the only role of the government that they're dropping the ball on like mad is that they should be regulating what we're putting in our body.
Yeah.
And we eat more chemicals and crap and plastics and like.
the FDA needs to be taken down.
Where are the regulations on that?
FDA is
That's
horrible.
crazy to me. Like we got it. That to me, I'm like, that's the biggest crisis right now.
I feel like
of our
you,
time.
taking down the whole system today.
You got,
Burn it all down.
You've got enough money.
Jesus,
you,
come back.
You can buy the FDA.
I can't stand it.
So wait, I will say the one thing because we're all dudes, obviously. I can't comprehend when a woman's like, I can't comprehend the idea of like the concept of we're like, well, there's a different human inside you. You're pregnant. But that symbiotic relationship of what a woman when it's like
your gametes
her
and
kid,
the father's gametes.
like that relationship where you're like, no, this is all my body, even though there's a kid in there. I obviously want to just tap out and say, I don't get that.
No, I don't understand.
I don't understand. Or like, no, you're telling me what to do with my body. I'm like, no, we're telling me to do with the baby. And you're like, they're kind of in my mind. A woman would say
Sure.
it's the same thing. I'm like, I don't get it. Objectively, it's not because it is a separate DNA strand, right? It's that you're getting a different.
But it's more
I
than
get
just a
it.
separate person outside
Right.
your body.
It's,
Of course.
It's something.
Yes.
So that part I would just be like, I get. That's why I'm like, I'm basically being like, here's where I'm at, realizing I have a very
But to
limited
turn around,
perspective.
here's my problem though. To turn around and say you don't get an opinion because you're not a woman is the weirdest. Because I'm
Well,
like,
mostly if that's my
wait a
kid in there.
exactly.
If that's my kid in there.
Oh my gosh.
Now we're moving from from objective to subjective.
Yes.
Right.
No, that's my child.
Yeah, you're responsible for it.
Right.
And
You
I
share that responsibility.
and the whole point of being a human is that I can have opinions outside of my circumstances. It's
Sure.
the reasons why I can make judicial decisions. I can make
Yes.
decisions on something outside of my realm.
Don't
'cause I
affect
go,
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm part of the society, right? I thought that's how
I
this
will-
works.
If a jury is about to decide whether or not you are going to go through capital punishment, and it's a dude on trial, men and women both can decide on whether or not you lose
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
Right.
There's nothing to do with being a man or a woman in that scenario. We're talking
Do
about.
any states still have capital punishment? I think Texas.
Yeah.
And is it
Yeah.
Florida?
I think Texas has like 7 extra ones. Just like 19 ways to die in Texas.
Yeah, capital punishment is
That should be a movie title.
is an interesting.
Quite a few, actually.
Oh, okay.
21 states
Arkansas.
have the death penalty.
Oh, no way.
Alabama, Arkansas,
sure
Florida,
Illinois
Georgia,
still
Idaho,
does.
Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky.
Oh, Illinois does not.
Look them up.
Interesting. That is actually. I don't know
What
why
state
that
do you
surprised
live
me
in?
At 21. I know California doesn't.
It's gonna be far from away from the coast and mostly south.
Yeah, right. Anyway,
I think
that's
for
a
me,
lot of craziness.
in all honesty, whenever we would gather, my family would gather for holidays or whatever, the conversation would always end up going somehow to politics. And as a
Usually
kid,
does.
I was like, I don't know what this is. And I
yeah.
thought politics, my only concept of it was the discussion at the table. Your local, discerning how you run your family,
Yeah.
how you interact with your neighbors and your community, and the ruling of the governing body or the powers that be. And so the affectations of politics on social conversation just the fact, and again, as we've talked about in the last couple of years, I've grown in my concern in a neutral sense, like wanting to research, wanting to learn, wanting
Yeah.
to know more, and start to formulate my opinions, which will then discern my decisions. So that's just something I think happens that with hopefully maturity, or just because it's the world we live in, the Western world. I never would have thought, like, I could never imagine my parents or my family or even my neighborhood having conversations about these things, about baby deletion and the rights to all this. The fact that it's a political conversation, and it's kind of surprising because, and then I go like, oh yeah, this is like one of those small things that's come up recently. Like, oh, we're Christians. We believe that, that this is the right to life. You're made in God's image, that there is murder is a thing, that the fetus is baby in Latin. Like, yeah, it's just, we think it's murder. But we understand in loving and consideration and empathy that there are situations where the mom could, right, maybe she's not
Again,
medically fit. These are crazy,
sub 2%.
horrible 2%,
Yeah.
Situations. But just the fact that everyone's like pipes up, oh, I have an opinion ready for that. It's like, wow.
yeah.
It's kind of a stark for me because I'm kind of new into this realm. It's like the fact that everyone has opinions and are so staunchly set on arguing that they're to be right on this matter. I'm like,
So the big conspiracy theory then is that the reason these topics are brought up is because we're all busy arguing them
when the real
while some of the crazy big stuff is
Well, I was gonna
happening.
say you know what I mean?
That's it.
Like
Yeah.
So that
The bigger
we're
discerning-
being
It's
distracted.
like wars or
distractions.
assassinations
Yeah.
that
Right.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do we have to say baby deletion on a podcast, but every single public debate use the actual term?
it's the guidelines of YouTube.
Oh, okay. It's YouTube.
YouTube.
It's
Yeah.
YouTube specifically.
where we're
so
the
YouTube's
policies
like
of
YouTube
we
is
can't say
censoring, like-
this.
No, censorship
but
has become
Fox and
Yeah. It's
CNN
not that we
and all.
can't. It's YouTube's way of censoring the conversation.
and demonetizing and all that. But the constitutional freedom of speech is
Well, in their face, they can't demonetize us.
Yeah.
We have
Good
to
luck.
make money first.
Good luck.
right. The freedom of speech is diminishing
No, it's that's a very
publicly. at
It's
least.
just something that's
Different
in every
conversation.
other medium. It is spoken. It's just said only here on these podcasts.
But I think my point of that is like with this topic of the baby deletion is then my concern is with the state of the division and opinions and I don't know the kind of the mysticism of where people land in reality that appears to me, and I'm not trying to offend anyone particularly, but then it's like I'm concerned 20, 30 years from now that people are going to go like, well, then what is murder? Like when, it was manslaughter. Or like, no, that wasn't murder.
and I think those
for sure.
conversations are
They're
not
happening.
not far behind.
Right.
I hate
that
using the
concerns me.
slippery slope debate, but that's a very real.
It's a slippery slope.
Because if you look at just the last 30 years,
Right.
40 maybe, there's a slippery slope that we would all recognize statistically. Forget about your opinions. Just look at the topics of conversation that we're having. Clearly a slippery slope. You can take even the idea of marijuana consumption. You look at that versus now we're having fentanyl conversations in a very short amount of time.
It's funny that
crazy.
And even the idea of psilocybins and like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you'd never use, but part of that is, which is weird, is we're also starting to realize, hey, should we be trusting all the medicine the government's been shoving in us in the first place?
Dude,
Do you know what I mean? Like
and
that's
you can
kind of,
get
that's
massive
another
bottles of.
huge
Right.
slippery slope that we were like, wait a minute.
because we're like, no, none of this stuff. But then we realize, but wait, what have they been giving us
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
whole time? Like, what has my doctor been prescribing me?
I
You're
think
like,
we
this stuff
took
isn't
the,
good.
We took the back seat in a lot of life and politics in our country because I think it was like pull yourselves up by your bootstraps, like work hard to make something of yourself. We all got very concerned with our personal well-being in terms of financial, especially in careers, that we stopped looking around and went, wait, I don't think you get to pay a government official to get to sign off on the drug that you just like. That doesn't make sense. That guy who's in public office can't be on the board of directors for your war machine, for your military complex. They
don't-
can't be on the board of directors for your pharmaceutical company. That doesn't make sense. That's a conflict of interest, guys.
Or,
We can't.
or our buddy would be like, I had a $10,000 a month budget to take doctors out to sell them pharmaceuticals. That can't be the way. That's bribery. You're
Right.
basically getting so it goes. So first the FDA passes it, and then on the ground level, you have all these farm reps and saying like, oh well, you know how he's going to use my drug? I'm going to take him golfing. I'm going to buy him golf clubs. I'm going to fly him to Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yes.
There's either this medicine is good for me or it's not. It
Yeah.
shouldn't just be like, we'll
it's
choose to use
frustrating.
yours.
It's like it's the Watergate scandal. The quote: "Follow the money."
Yeah,
you know.
right. And we've seen that forever. So let's bring this back into our world.
no.
Which people could say about the church too.
What?
People could say about follow the money in regards to the church. The corruption in the
Yeah,
church.
yeah. Oh no, and I would go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think there are times where it's actually one of the reasons why I like kind of what our church is doing right now, just kind of tightening up and being like, hey, let's just be more mindful.
And transparent.
We're
always
super
been transparent.
Yeah.
We just gotten a little sharper on being like, okay.
And it's funny because I don't think we necessarily did anything wrong. I mean, I would say that.
But there's always room for growth.
But that's
Yeah.
my thing, and I'm like, and I
That's
don't.
with your own home budget.
And grace.
And I don't know why that's so bad to say. It almost sounds like, oh, don't say that. It's like, no, it's perfectly
When's
fine
the
to be
last
like,
time
we're
you
gonna
went through your home
do it
budget
better.
and were like, why do I have this subscription?
Yeah. Where can I
Right?
trim the fat?
That's
yeah.
where you go. You just go like,
Yeah.
I don't need 9 streaming services.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I go
And of
through
course,
my budget,
when I
there's
cancel
stuff I
them,
cut.
And those
The
are the ones
best
that
shows come
those are the
out.
ones that sneak in. By the way, it's subscriptions. That's what always gets me. I'm always
the
like,
world is
because
subscriptions.
I'm like, you know what, this is fine.
Which
and then
I think that was one of the smartest shifts they made. That's
Dude.
brilliant because we went from like subscriptions were dumb and you had like 1 or 2 magazine subscriptions,
right.
to now everything's
Everything.
on a
I
subscription.
can't think of one service that isn't on a subscription.
I have
basis.
I have a subscription for my car, like it's like the because it's download stuff. So I have to pay like a $10 a month.
my kids, when they want to play
What?
video games, like you want to be on PlayStation.
a subscription to power the household, a subscription to get groceries delivered to you,
anything
like
you can think of.
subscription to cooking services for recipes.
funny.
It
It's
is.
just
yeah.
It is the
crazy.
spot to go to and be like, all right, I need to go through these.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
check and see. That's the Rocket Mortgage. You see it on Instagram all the time.
Yeah, that's a.
Well,
sounds
I'll
great.
give you this car if you can tell me how many subscriptions
The
you have.
only reason that came to mind is in recent discussions and debates that I was watching, one of the terms that people bring when it comes to Christianity is, I'm not willing to subscribe to this religion. And I go, oh, there's that word's been thrown a lot. And so then I realized, like, kind of subconsciously, we subscribe to everything.
Yeah.
And so it's like, why? Why are you willing to pay more than whatever smart percentage of your disposable
Yeah, yeah.
for all these things that are fleeting and fall away and temporal and entertainment or whatever? And this.
It's funny.
Is Rocket Mortgage free?
It's something like that. I forgot what it is. It
But
might
if
be
you
free.
if you
It's
subscribe
an
to
app.
premium,
So I've always wondered because I'm like, why would I pay you when I would just look at my credit card statement?
Yeah.
Right.
That's like, aren't we doing the same thing?
Convenience,
But
buddy.
on their app, you can turn them off real easily. It's always convenience, right?
Yes.
It's like you can
Yeah,
turn,
it just I never knew if it was free or not because I'm like, if it's free, cool. But I really didn't understand. I'm giving you access to
my stuff.
really like that's I don't know what you're gonna do.
Every time somebody says that about it, can just turn off a subscription. I'm like, I haven't seen anything. Those subscriptions got a hold of you like a death grip.
I've canceled so many.
You know how long it takes to go
feels
through
good
it?
to do it.
Yeah. Oh, it feels great.
It's great.
Not
It's
hard
funny.
anymore. Like it's funny. Like Hulu, when I
Oh,
canceled
they
Hulu,
made it easy.
it was like, boop.
Well,
And I
say-
like them.
Yeah,
for
me
that.
too.
Well, as soon as
Makes
I
me-
cancel
it makes me.
Netflix and
I'll go
stuff.
back again.
And what's funny is I think they're running a special right now. I think it's $2.99 a month.
We do it
for
every-
6 months.
I get
Yeah.
Hulu every time it's $2.99 a month.
And so I was about to
But
do
that's
Hulu.
how they get you. Because then in the
because
next year, it'll be $6.99.
No,
for
then we just
HD.
cancel.
I'm just gonna binge through What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah.
This is What We Do in the Shadows.
Not
is back,
sponsored, but we
so-
love the show.
We'll be sponsored by What We Do in the
Jermaine,
Shadows.
call us.
It's
Oh my
funny,
God.
whenever you mention subscription, you're saying it, I just thought of this. It's an old Simpsons. And Lisa's trying to prove a point to Homer and saying, he's like, oh, you don't get it. That's like me saying, see this rock? There's no tigers around, so this rock keeps tigers away. And he's like, oh, your ideas intrigue me. She's like, no. He goes, I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter. She's like,
That's
no.
amazing.
She's like, no, I'm trying to prove a point.
Right.
He's like, you're right. I don't see tigers around.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, the causal relationship is a
So then,
difficult one
But
for
on the
us.
flip side, when you don't have to subscribe to something, and you have the long form, free market media, so like Joe Rogan's podcast,
yeah.
that and all of the top comments were, which with thousands of upvotes and or whatever likes, was saying like this is more, this has more substance
Than the debate.
and access
Yeah.
than mainstream media,
Yeah.
and it's like
Which was super interesting.
refreshing.
This was one of the things that kind of had a little conspiracy vibe to it at first. So they were getting it was 1 million views an hour. That podcast that Joe Rogan did with Trump. It was getting over 1 million views an hour. It's like the most viewed thing ever on YouTube.
yeah.
And it wasn't on their trending list.
That's
Oh.
crazy.
And for the first, I think it was however many hours. For the
It wasn't
first
on the
however many
channels
hours,
or YouTube's
YouTube's out. You could, and then for the first however long it was,
censorship, but
if you searched Trump Rogan, you would get clips. You couldn't find the full.
people are having a
episode.
hard time finding.
And Rogan even came out and said, "Hey, I talked to YouTube. They said they had an issue internally with their software." And I'm like, interesting. Like how you couldn't find it.
How do you have an issue with your internal software when you go, if you don't have an account and you just log into YouTube, it'll pull up all the trending stuff at the time.
Yeah.
Based on people's views.
Well, that's all it is, based on
and traffic.
views and interaction.
So it's
and
like,
that you couldn't find it is a funny concept.
It's funny, I don't watch much Rogan, so I went to it. I was like, I saw it, so I went to watch some of it. But it was mostly the same shtick, so
Sure,
I didn't
sure.
I didn't watch very long because I'm like, it's
I was watching it
they're
hoping
running-
for a new shtick.
yeah, that's I kind of watched. And I was like, okay,
I watched the whole thing. It's 3 hours worth of material.
oh my gosh,
And then Vance went on. I haven't finished. Actually, did I
Oh.
finish?
Yeah, that was a few
Vance
days
is
ago.
4 hours.
Or a week ago.
Two guys, 7 hours worth of stuff. I'm like, geez, man.
Wow.
That is a long,
and
Vance is almost 4.
I watch it at times 1.5 at minimum. So I'm just like, but it was still just like, okay, we're going through the same, like nothing new. And I'm saying
Yeah.
like,
I don't sit
thought it
there
was
and watch
interesting.
anything.
No, it's good to do in the background while you're doing work.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that's what I end up doing. And then I you end up hearing majority of it.
Sure.
All right, what else do we have? I think we've talked that to death.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Sure.
I genuinely, there is something in me that loves and hates talking politics
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I do really enjoy it. I think
You
it's
got to
so
do it at
important.
least once a year. This is, or once every 4 years. This is kind of the time to do it.
Do we want to go to that topic 3 in regards to the enemy's followers expanding clinics? That was already kind of review. We already kind of
Clinics? Oh
touched
yeah,
on
yeah.
that.
I don't.
Yeah.
We have
Oh,
some-
interesting.
what?
The scariest parable Jesus ever told.
Ooh, love it.
Yeah, let's see if we agree.
So this is on Christian Post Voices.
Jesus, it was Jesus who gave the parable of the man who builds a tower, counts the cost.
That's he's building.
That was Jesus who says that, though,
Yes,
right? I
yes.
thought so. Yeah, yeah. Because that one to me, I've always
it
been like,
stands as a structure of failure to everybody else who
Yeah.
passes
Yes.
by.
I've actually been like, well, that one's pretty gnarly to me. But anyway, what do we got?
Let's see here. Trying to see if
I think Jesus. Okay.
this is the okay. Wait, is this
I'll hop in.
referencing? Sorry,
You keep reading.
they're referencing a bunch to build up to it, so
Yeah.
it's not.
The one that it's not a parable, but the Jesus heals the woman with the bleeding, and then he's like, "I don't throw scraps to the dogs." I'm like, wow,
What?
there is some harsh stuff with Jesus that I've studied.
that was a
and
different
written about.
lady, the bleeding one.
I thought the bleeding one was
I think that was a different one.
because she touched the hem of his garment.
And she was immediately healed. Power came out of it. It was a different one.
It
But
was
it
a
could be a
different
different
one,
telling of
'cause,
it. It actually could be a different telling of that same
And
story.
actually, in reading
Because he's
that,
like, who touched me because the power? I felt power.
I
leave
like
me.
that one, and I the same thing. And so then the context before it, it referenced the
Girl
disciples.
who was healed.
Well, it was referencing the disciples in regards to like they were sharing their discriminatory views. So it could be interpreted that as Jesus is saying these things, he's saying it almost sarcastically, like to his with his disciples witnessing, and then
I remember that.
and then she goes like, yeah, but even the dogs are
Eat the
grateful to eat
scraps.
the scraps.
Yeah.
And then he says, "Great is
You
your
do
faith."
not. You do not. You
So-
do not take the food that's meant for the children of Israel and throw it
Yeah,
to
Right,
the
and to,
dogs.
yeah,
dogs.
to the Gentiles at the
Pretty
time.
phenomenal.
So that was that reference that I just read into actually. This is the longest article. I'm trying. It's not.
It's
doesn't
very
just
scary.
plainly.
It's very scary.
It's referencing the wedding feast. So basically, that those.
The thief in the night.
No.
No.
The wedding feast is they kick the guests out, and and they go get people off the street.
Oh yes. Okay.
bring them in.
Okay.
Yes, and invited here, those slaves in the streets gathered all they found, both evil and good. Wedding hall is filled with their guests. And then, the king came in to look over the dinner guests, saw the man who was not dressed in the wedding clothes, and he said to them, "Friend, how did you come here without wedding clothes?" The man was speechless. Then the king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, throw him out into the outer darkness, in the place where there be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen."
So why would that be scary? Is that because it's a predestination comment?
I would say because on the surface it is it's alluding to losing your salvation.
Right.
That's what I.
Oh, that is not how I would read that passage.
Interesting.
Because
So the wedding guest wasn't a Christian.
he's not wearing the proper clothes, and
Right.
so the idea of clothed in righteousness.
So it's
he was in the
Yes.
right room, but
Right.
he wasn't clothed in righteousness.
It's the did we not cast out demons in your name?
Yeah,
concept.
because he's
Depart me.
it's kind of like you're standing before God, but you're not clothed in the righteousness of Christ.
Yeah.
And so he's like, you got to get out.
The depart from me is the scariest one.
Because of-
if you're going to say scariest.
But because of my upbringing, I read both of those as losing your salvation. That's why I think that would be considered the scariest one.
is that how you presently?
No, I don't believe that now.
yeah.
But my upbringing, that's always there because that was the Pentecostal age.
And they hold that over you. Yeah, even the one that depart from me, the only key phrase in there is new. It's the word I never knew you. The one thing the Bible talks about salvation is knowing him.
Sure, but especially in the Revelation concept, they seem to have known him.
This actually,
So that's crazy.
this kind of refutes its own scariness because then he's referencing Galatians 3:27 when Paul says, "For all of you who were baptized in Christ have clothed yourself in Christ."
Oh.
So it's like, well, why is it scary?
Like it was scary. No, it's not. Don't worry about it.
It's not. Yeah, the clothing concept specifically. Too,
And then he
'cause
references-
that motif is used throughout the New Testament.
And then he
Yes.
does say,
Salvation.
reference the Matthew 7, where he's talking about "I never knew you, depart from me, you workers of lawlessness."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is
I think because a lot of times so much of those parables are really still, when people are looking at them, we are still so intertwined with our works have something to do with our
Yes.
salvation.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's still so even evangelical, Pentecostal,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you are, it's still in there. So when they hear those and there's something connected to works in God's discounting works
Yeah.
and saying that's not salvation, we're like, whoa, wait, I do works.
yeah.
Is this like, no?
Well, I think that was the distinction I was trying to make on Sunday, and I didn't have time to really get to it. But the two types of righteousness, the Martin Luther's righteousness coram Deo and righteousness coram mundo, like that distinction of the righteousness of God and the righteousness of man. I was not taught that when I was young. I was taught
How to
that
be
righteousness
righteous.
is righteous, like not all. That it's a gift from God that you then earn. And I'm like, no, it's two literally different types of righteousness.
It's not a gift.
Isn't that weird? But it is because he's even him making it available to you as the gift.
Yeah.
but that you still have to earn it. And it was never explicitly said like that. So I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. It was just that.
That's the belief.
Yeah, and it really felt that way. And so you get to this realization, I think, of, and it doesn't take a lot of studying, because you just kind of look at Scripture and look at who God is and God's heart, and you realize, oh, God is giving you this righteousness of God, coram Deo, like in the presence of God. That is what they call positional righteousness, that you can't earn. It is truly a gift. But then there is this separate practical righteousness, coram mundo, that is of man, that is you, then, hence the term that you work out your salvation with fear and trembling. There's more to this now.
There's also this idea of...
That's not salvation, by the way.
Yeah.
It's faith.
Yeah.
But.
And that
Sanctification.
funny, I pick up that, I take the handoff from you and I pick it up, and it goes to the same idea of, he who began a good work in you will be faithful to complete it.
Yes.
Unless you have a good understanding of the suke and the pneuma, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
The pneuma's made perfect, the suke is in process.
Right.
Yes.
So
Who began.
That's
And
right.
That was the tension that I feel like I did a horrible job explaining, but the tension of the we have to be able to say okay, I am saved, and now I can get to work.
Yeah.
It's the faith without works is dead concept.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you have faith not apart from works. It's faith that works. You are saved. Now live up to that which you have already attained. What when you put all of Scripture together, it's so clear and beautiful that I feel like we miss out and you either get really lazy and complacent because you're saved no matter what, or you're working your tail off for salvation, which chances are you may not even be saved because you're not understanding the concept of salvation to begin with.
You just dove into, I'm going to just mirror what Christians are doing.
So it's really tough.
Yeah, that's the title of this Sunday sermon is Faith Then Works. That's they're together.
Yeah. I've always heard it, which I don't remember who said it, but it was faith that works. And I love that. To me resonated so well because it's my faith that actually causes me to work.
Yeah.
My faith does work. And so I've always loved that. So that wasn't scary at all.
No.
Yeah, that didn't do it.
The
I could see at face value if you don't read any other Scripture.
Or if you were
Sure.
raised in the 80s and 90s,
Sure.
and you've never really thought differently than kind
Which
of how
sadly I was.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of the old, I don't know if you guys are old enough for this story, which is, it was a riddle. And it's like, oh, you were in a car accident.
Okay.
Something like, it's like you're in this car accident and the person is all of a sudden rushed to the hospital and the doctor says, oh, I can't work on this person because they're my son. Who's the doctor? And it was something like that. And people couldn't figure it out purely because they couldn't figure out that the doctor could be a woman.
Sure.
But it was
right.
only thought in the,
I do
in the
remember that.
80s.
Something like
people were
that.
like,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
only like, no, it can't be
Yeah.
because it's not the dad. We know it's not the dad. Then who is this person?
Yeah.
Literally,
Well.
that baffled people in the 80s.
Yeah, I think it was the
You're
father and son were in a wreck together.
That's right.
Yeah,
and you're like,
something
I
that.
can't be like, what? And people are like, I don't get it. And they're like, how misogynistic is our culture that they can't comprehend? But it's the same thing like this,
Right.
like, where they're like, oh, what's this mean? It's I'm going to lose my salvation. Like, or
Right.
it's they're not saved because you're not clothed in the righteousness of Christ. This
Right.
isn't
Right.
that crazy of a thought.
Yeah, and I think it's because of the starting point, even culturally. And I mean, it's hard not to be honest about this one. It's like culturally, don't be a deadbeat. Don't not work. So if you're not working, something's wrong. And then we've taken that and it's bled into, I think that was kind of the Puritan movement, bled into, so yeah, you got to do something. And again, the faith without works is dead. So all of that stuff is built on top of each other, that if you're not doing anything, you can't be saved. And it's
I've heard
you can.
so many people add in those who continue in their faith are saved, right? That this idea of this continuity in following.
Yeah.
And so it goes to the lose your salvation, where you're saved in the first place. But I still hear a lot of people say this idea, the continuity of their following is what is their salvation's predicated upon it. Because basically they're saying is if you really were saved, you would continue on in this place.
Yeah. As if we don't have seasons of a tree that bear fruit and don't bear fruit. Like, not to be dumb.
Or we don't become prodigal and you're
But
still a son.
I feel like we've dropped the ball and we're so cut and dry, and it's so funny. I know people that I very much respect and scholars that I think are far more brilliant than I'll ever be who are still on the other side of the salvation aisle. So I'm like, I don't know.
For a lot of people too, it's like something I've noticed recently is the concept of free will and like accountability, all that. I was raised Lutheran, so it's like, baptized as a child, as a baby, and it's like this is a gift freely given to you, and now you work out your faith. And what's funny is it's just been so much time, and I have holes in my memory, but I don't recall that fear mongering or anything. There was the fearing God, but it wasn't like the work your faith out or in fear of losing salvation.
Yeah.
I remember in confirmation, my pastor had this diagram, and he's like, all right, select which of these is accurate. And it's like you and then God. And it's like an arrow all the way up to God. There's an arrow where you and God meet in the middle, and an arrow, God coming all the way down to you.
Oh, interesting.
And we didn't really know. We didn't, so I'm guessing, and I'm like, well, I thought it was the first one, where your faith, and you given faith at baptism that the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, and you work that out, and you reach God, right? You're achieving perfection. You're trying to reach that. And that wasn't something, and my pastor was like the most passionate and energetic in his response, and just like, all right, I'm going to tell you guys right now,
You're an idiot.
these are wrong.
You're the
And it was
dumb
like,
one.
this is the
These
right.
are your diagrams, sir.
It's like,
you
this
just
is,
showed me.
He only gave me 3 choices. I had a 33.3% chance. And he said, this is the one. God, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
And he
God
says,
descends.
God, he descends. He came to earth. He comes all the way. He meets you where you are, as you
good.
are. And that was something that
If
was
there's
like,
nothing you can do, why is there confirmation?
and that was the confusion that I had
But
at the
wouldn't
time.
that be the righteousness coramundo then?
Right. So
Like,
that was
it's
the
trying to make
but they're
you.
saying it's confirmation of faith, like
But
salvation.
The Lutherans are.
Yes.
yes. So that was the
Confirmation is confirming
It
yourself.
really is Catholic light. There's
It
no way
is.
around this,
It
right?
totally
Like,
is.
It really is.
Oh yeah, a lot of the traditions. I mean, even the corporate, and then except we did. Our church did a corporate confession.
What
as
if it was
opposed to
called
individual.
affirmation?
That's
Oh.
good. Affirming.
Would that be better?
Because we affirm it all the time.
That we're
A lot of things
saying-
affirm it.
So Luther just hammers affirmations on the 95 affirmations on the door.
But I
which
wonder
would be hilarious.
if that would be a different story, and if that's kind of what they're meaning.
You're saved. It's
Is that
good.
we're affirming? Now that you've taken this class, now that you understand
Right.
the truths, that we're affirming that you're. I just wonder.
But he was actually he brought that conversation into the sanctification and said, this is the working that you're doing, that the Holy Spirit is working in you, that the Christ has began in you, is that sanctification.
Interesting,
and I said,
though, because-
and that was the basis for at least that I thought,
Yeah.
for confirmation.
Okay.
So, but that was interesting.
I'm mostly intrigued, and I touched on this on Sunday, but the big five that happened during atonement: the sanctification, justification, redemption, propitiation, and there's one more I can't remember now.
Yeah.
I think 4 of the 5 are written in the past tense.
Right.
That you have been sanctified, that you have
Would you
been
mind
justified.
delineating between atonement and propitiation?
Atonement is there are different theories of atonement.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Propitiation,
Propitiation is one of the theories of atonement.
which it is because it's the propitiation. Literally,
That's what I thought. I thought they're the
defined-
same thing.
They're not.
Okay.
Is to appease the wrath of.
Sure.
And there are other theories of atonement that are like Christus Victus is
Yes,
one of the
which
theories.
is the two that FPU and the Well have trouble with because they have
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Christus Victus is
because they are penal
FPU,
substitutionary atonement,
they
if
are
I'm not
penal
mistaken.
substitutionary
They are
atonement.
big time penal.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Which, by
these
the
are
way,
all-
there's some truth in all of them. Like they're
Right.
kind of grabbing on different elements. We're
That's
kinda
what
like,
I realized
they're
when
kinda all in
I
there.
did a deep dive on the theories of atonement. Is I was like, yes, a little bit here, and yes, a little bit here, and yes, a little, and then I finally
Yeah.
went, oh, everyone is trying to explain something that, by the way,
It's a perspective.
our teeny tiny little brains
Yeah.
aren't going to grasp.
Yeah.
What Christ did by raising again from the dead. None of us are going to get it. And we all just had glimpses into things. And I think if you combined them all, you'd have a much better understanding. But people stand on one
It's
and
the
they're like, we are.
acceptance of that free gift that just feels like, well, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
At least because of our experiences in the world.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't think any of us like it that much, to be
Sure.
honest. It's
Sure.
too weird. It's
Yeah.
too foreign.
Yeah.
Right.
To
It is-
just be like, here you go, and you go, thank you. Now what do I have to do? And it's like,
Right.
just be you.
Yeah.
That's what God's calling. He's literally is like, just live in your fullness. And you're like, oh, I can't. What? Like,
But when I heard Christus Victus, versus penal substitutionary atonement, I was like, well, yeah, but also that other one. Mm-hmm. Like I was definitely like, I wasn't like, no, I was like, no, that's right.
There's a
But
piece.
Jesus, the shedding of blood for the remission of sins is also still true.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, and he does take a penalty. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, it is him victorious. It's perspective. It's him his victory over sin. Like it's fascinating where I'm always like, these are some dumb arguments we're making.
Do you think it's because as if you're a denomination that is trying to discern like your pillars and your tenets and all that, so it's like, is it like you're so concerned about nailing down your doctrine and the pressure of like we gotta have it down pat, so it can't be a combination of these things, it can't be a constant conversation, it's got to be this because there's no contradictions to anything, I don't know.
It's probably more that at the time when a position was held, it was pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it. 100 years later, people are like,
A new perspective.
yeah, it's hard to back off of something that you've kind of stood on for a long time.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of times it's like you based your denomination on, and flexing on that. We've seen that in the world. You know who doesn't win elections? People who are in the middle.
No.
Yeah.
I had a really hard time, and
That's a good point.
I've quote unquote deconstructed probably like twice in my life, never to denounce my faith, but to take the theology and doctrine that I was taught and look at it under a microscope. And some of it I had to go, I just don't feel that way anymore.
You did kind of denounce church though.
Yeah, I would say inappropriately and wrongly.
Yeah.
I don't think it was correct.
That was a
I did
season.
that.
Well, yeah.
And that wasn't because I deconstructed theologically or doctrinally. That was just because I just didn't want to do it anymore. Like it was more of just I was being a jerk.
Is this
and I
my
was out.
water? I think this is.
Yeah, it is.
I spit in both of them, so do what you want.
It's fine.
Thank you.
So yeah, I think I think it's healthy for us to always be seeking.
Yeah.
Like
I think part of that, like what we kind of bringing it back to, you said, you can be a Christian, a follower of Christ, recognizing him as Lord and Savior, rose from the dead. But you know what? The way I'm designed and God has called me, and my wrestling with that is I've deconstructed a few times. Well, you're a blacksmith and carpenter.
Right,
You're used to doing that to understand how a project worked. That's how you understand. That's probably how you came to learn those things. So it makes sense for me.
And that is funny. I never thought about that, but I know people with a more analytical mind than others, and some people, and one part of it too, it's interesting. Like my father has the spiritual gift of faith. Like that's a spiritual gift outside of the faith of salvation. It's a spiritual gift that we're told in Scripture. And watching him maneuver life is so fun because it's so simple.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That'll work it out.
I wish I had more of that simple like gene that I was able to go, oh, it doesn't matter what you say or whatever argument. Somebody brings a decent argument to me and I go, interesting. I'm going to sit with that for like a month. I'm going to tear it apart. I'm going to work with it. Whereas he's like, that dumb, out. And I'm like, geez, that was easy for him. Like, man, that was fun.
I'm not a blacksmith or carpenter, so I don't always trying to figure out how things work. I think you just grew up in a very argumentative culture. And I think even Italians that like to argue. So I think that just came into my journey where I'm like, no, I like the winners and losers concept of things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I actually had to back off and be like, there's actually more than one answer to this.
Yeah.
Ashton and I had that conversation today. We literally this morning, right before I came in, we were having that conversation of the more I shift from winning an argument to actually having thought-provoking conversation, because I will still slip into it. When we get into a topic, I'm like, it's time to win. And I'm like, wait,
I do too.
What am I winning?
Or I get worked up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, now I'm not thinking, I'm just thinking about winning. But
Totally.
But I think that was a good start because I really did. In every arena, when people just take a soft take on things, I'm like, boring. Nope.
I know, right? Yeah.
You know what? Everybody's right. I'm like, you might be right, but that's
Participation
a
trophy.
horrible thing to
Participation
say.
trophy.
But then
And it also kind of can't be true, though.
it can't
No.
be true. But there's
Law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, I feel
Just
like it
saying.
just kinda has
but
to.
there's also like some like, okay, but maybe there's elements and angles, you know what I mean, that I had to open myself up to, being like, okay, from that perspective, I still think you're wrong, but I also think, if my starting point is yours,
Or
I
see,
can see where
I
you
now
arrive
see
there.
where you're coming from.
Right, right.
Is a beneficial.
And part of that too, like I really enjoyed the last Fireside Theology we had because the right questions were being asked, and
that was fun. That was one of the better ones.
and it's not like anything was
all
landed
because one guy was
or
really
anything
pushing. And
right,
I loved
or
it.
it was like, oh, I'm convinced, or wow, you answered it. You hit all the tick marks. It was, hey, you know what? That's acceptable. In fact, I want to talk about that more.
Yeah.
And it's like that's kind of where the grace steps in. And I think if you can still stand on what you believe is true and have ears to hear the other side, and offer steel man and all that.
Yeah.
But then when there's grace in there and go like, oh, you know what? I see why you have that perspective.
Sure.
Which is where I feel like part of maybe that's where the oil and the water and Christians and the world today there isn't that
and the
message
sheep and the goats.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
just keep going
message
with them.
that
The light and the dark.
yeah, the dark chocolate and the milk chocolate.
Ooh.
Yeah, that just isn't. The message isn't propagated of grace in these conversations. It's be right. It's being right, and there's this massive.
I think
pressure.
the hard part is that then we went from like, all right, let's stop all trying to be right, and then now we're like, everybody's right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the
Yeah.
other side now.
These
It's like,
extremes.
We
Which
will
is-
slide on that scale, I think, forever. And that we're just, and part of it I love because I'm like, people are empathetic and they're trying to be loving. And that's
Yeah.
why I don't mind half of the movements that I'm on the other side of because I'm like, I see the empathy in it. You're
I
wanting
love your
people
heart.
to feel good. You want people to do it. And I'm
be
like,
included.
sure.
Be
It's-
thoughtful.
It stinks though for me because then it falls apart where I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm in. You want people to have freedom and you want people to, but except for the other side, the side that you don't like, you don't want them to have any freedom.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you can't censor one group because you are empathetic to one, and I'm like, where's the empathy for the other side now? Like it all falls
I
apart.
always go back to the lifeboat. A ship has gone down. You have one lifeboat. Only 50 people can get on it.
I could pick. Oh, is that not what we
And
did?
my thought is,
50 people.
my
Wow.
thought, they're usually pretty big. And my thought is, the empathy is, let's ride around a lifeboat and pick up people. Right? We don't want people to die. But there's a finite number there, and that's gonna suck.
Right.
And that's kind of that. It's like I'm here. I didn't run off with the lifeboat with just myself. I came back. I wanted to pick up people.
Yeah.
But at some point, there's going to be a very hard conversation and a truth conversation where like we can only take 50 people. And I think that's the part in our world where it's like I love the empathy, but there's sometimes you come up to a very hard line where you're like, hey, we need to. There's a truth here that we can't just keep ignoring because we have empathy.
Right.
We're going to have to deal with it.
But then God working all things for everyone, the good of those who love him, that's an opportunity for the next lifeboat to come by and meet them where they're at.
No, there's only one lifeboat.
Yeah, the boats are down.
Okay.
There's only one lifeboat on the whole ship.
The one arc.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Let's do something fun.
Would you rather's?
That was half exhausting.
No, it was great.
That was craziness.
And I'm gonna include one because it was a conversation last
do
night.
it.
It was a fun little silly thing. Would you rather get 10% better at everything you do, or have a hyper intelligent monkey that can do anything?
Yep, that's it.
Oh, I have heard this one.
That was terrifying.
The
They
monkey.
put
The
30
monkey's like the horse.
They put 30%. I was like, too high. So I
high.
knocked it down to 10%.
better.
10% better or hyper intelligent monkey that can do anything.
So the horse was a.
It was weirder.
Yeah, it was super weird. So you're
Because
just saying.
because it was like indestructible, and
Yeah,
then
no.
you were indestructible.
The horse was awesome.
hold
no,
on.
no.
Bring
I'll give you. Okay, let's do, just because it's funny. Let me just explain it because it was incredible. You can summon an interdimensional, like hyper intelligent.
We did it on the episode.
I thought that was in the
did?
car.
No, we did an episode. Oh no, it was in the car. It was
Yeah,
on our
I don't
drive.
I don't
You're
think I
right.
was there for that.
Horse that is like a battle horse
Cool.
that you can.
My steed.
If you are touching,
You're invincible.
you absorb all of its powers. So basically,
The horse that Jesus rides in on.
it's the end all.
Or
horse.
be a billionaire. It was like $400 million. Because then we said,
money,
well, if
man.
I got this horse,
The other option was, we figured out ways
The
to
horse
make
talked.
the money for, the horse could speak.
it speak
We're
everything.
like, you just make money on the horse. Problem is,
It's like, it says, why did you hit me?
You can't not be touching the horse because somebody's going to take a pop shot at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just have to be like, I'm touching that horse. I'm living on this horse for the rest of my
I'm here
life.
for dinner.
Why is someone
Hand me the plate. Go hand it to me.
Why is someone taking a shot at you? You're just riding a horse around.
Because the horse is valuable.
because
it's
what-
like the golden goose.
Do you
And-
advertise it? You're like, hey, this is my horse.
That's how you
that
make
makes-
money.
Well, and yeah, you would eventually
If that's the case,
You're
I don't care about
capitalizing.
money.
You can march into any battle scenario, and you're
one of the things was
indestructible.
that you could literally end.
Can I ride
wars.
on water? Can I ride
You
across
could
the
do
ocean?
literally anything you could think
Or I
about.
could fly there? Oh,
Dude,
going
it's
to the
crazy.
bottom of the ocean with a horse? I didn't
I
think
would
about that.
swoop into
You're
the
indestructible.
bottom of the
You could just go explore them. It'd still be terrifying.
I'd take out the cartels.
Yeah, because
I'd
then
go
you're
across
floating
the-
off the horse. Oh, it's so scary. I don't like it.
Or even the thought of, say, it can't kill you. The stuff you're going to run into at the bottom of the ocean, it can't kill you. I'm still terrified.
Yeah, especially if it's like that giant animal ate us
Cthulhu
both. We're not
Cthulhu
going
is
to
real.
die,
Right.
but we are in its intestines for a while.
Oh, man.
That is
Anyway,
so scary.
So a monkey, tell me the attributes of the monkey.
Hyper intelligent
Just
monkey that can
hyper-intelligent.
do anything.
It can do anything. I think they mean like work for you, like an indentured servant.
But it's still a monkey.
Yes.
Does it
Oh,
throw its
dude.
poop at me?
If it thinks it's hyper intelligent, if it thinks it's effective.
if you're like, hey, what are you doing? Are you still doing day trading? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, no, stop day trading. Like, I thought you were gonna fix the house,
And then it
and then
does
it
the-
eats your face.
Oh gosh, dang it, Steve!
Yeah. It's like that was a great investment, but what are you eating?
I'm going 10%. It's easy for me. 10% better than everything I do. I don't want that.
I would like to see.
The other one, the horse, is you don't have to feed it, you don't have to care for it. It's
Yeah, you don't
all
have to do anything,
self-sustaining. So even if the monkey was all self-sustaining, took care of itself, no.
I would just like to see practically what 10% improvement would be.
Yeah. Like efficiency.
Like what is 10% like insane
7 strokes off your game.
or is it nothing?
7.2 strokes off your game,
Oh.
off your golf game.
Well, what's your handicap right
Blink of
now?
an eye.
That's pretty good.
Wow, that actually would be kind of cool.
That's pretty good.
Single digits and like single digit handicap.
The-
That's a toughie. I think the monkey just intrigues me so much. I'm so intrigued by
Only
this
problem
monkey.
is a lot of my highly intelligent friends are, they're very critical or analytical. So it's like I wouldn't want to come home and like it's watching some movie and like sit down. Oh, sit down. It's like and just break down every scene when I'm watching
I
something.
just more like that the monkey's so critical of
or
me.
just every decision I make.
Like, what did you do today?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? That's what you're
I'm
spending.
trying
Are
to
your
think
car
about it.
shocks fixed yet?
I'm trying to think if there's a task I'd want it to do.
Dude,
What do I want it to do?
and you can't subjugate it to like
I'm
clean the
having-
house.
Is it editing this
It's gonna be
podcast?
like, why?
I'm having to write my sermons for
Yeah.
sure. I want a monkey's perspective on the
And I just
Trinity.
love that. By the way,
There's a lot of banana analogies.
it's hanging
in
from
this.
its tail from the ceiling all the time.
Jesus, it's like a peeled banana. What's happening right now?
You, Joe, all of your sermons have gone from banana to poop throwing analogies. What is happening?
I'm gonna go out on a limb and just wait for the pun to hit. I would still do. I do 10% better than anything.
10%.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
the hyper intelligent monkey can be someone else's.
I want to know what 10% translates to, though, but it would probably be 10%.
Basically, if you want to look at it this way, you have to input 10% less effort
Yeah,
to improve on
that
projects.
is an interesting
If
thought.
I had a
Yeah.
small business, it'd be the monkey. Because then I'd be like, I'll just give them a bunch of tasks I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, but it's hyper intelligent. It's gonna be like, you think I'm a fool?
that is the
Even doing the
bummer.
books. Even doing the books.
But it is a bummer to be like, did I just enslave a hyper
That's no,
intelligent being?
you are indentured
Yeah,
servant.
it's actually sad.
It is
Yeah.
very sad.
And then you realize the
he
entire time
wants-
that
he
monkey
wants
is
to.
building.
That's what you tell yourself
wants
when you
to.
go to bed. He loves this.
And then it's
just
also a monkey. It wants to eat your face.
I
If
want
it's
him to,
upset
I want
with
him to
you,
come in. He's got a visor on and then like a pencil behind his ear while he's doing some
Yeah.
work and like tape that he's been working
Love
through,
it.
smoking
Yeah.
his cigarettes.
No,
Yeah.
he's great. I like him.
okay. Would you rather live in a
Wait,
graveyard?
what was the one you were doing? You were
Last night we were decorating the tree, and
Okay.
so I was like, "Hey, babe, do you want to decorate just the part that's seen,
Oh,
because
not
it's in the
back.
corner,
Yeah, yeah.
or the whole tree?" And
Yeah.
so I was, and she's like,
You
"Oh, that'd be a
decorated
good
a
question."
Christmas tree last night.
Yep.
Awesome. I'm a bigger fan of you now.
Yep.
It is November fourth.
No, we're right. It's
No,
Halloween.
you are right.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Wait. I just got to clarify something. Were you the don't decorate for Christmas guy in the sanctuary or the do decorate for Christmas guy in the sanctuary right now? Because we went through the debate of do we do the 1 month of harvest and then do Christmas?
Oh, yeah,
What
yeah,
side did you land on?
Mine was just do the Christmas because
Okay, good. That's consistent.
having fall up for 2 weeks.
If you were not that, but then in your own home,
No.
you were Christmas. I'm like,
but
what is
also
happening?
that was also being work. It's like, why are we having up for 2 weeks and then do Christmas?
No,
but
just-
also it works. It came out really well.
It did come out well. It still should have been Christmas.
Yeah. So would you, if you're setting up your tree in the corner, only
You know the
One third of
obvious,
it-
right? You know it's obvious, right?
yeah. Oh, my answer is why am I?
Well, it's funny. Is
Wait, what's your answer?
I think it's obvious to you.
What's
but I don't
your
think it's
answer?
obvious to everybody
What's
else.
your obvious?
Mine is what's seen.
Oh, no way.
But we still did the whole tree. We did it all around. We had a lot of ornaments.
There's, I heard this on the radio the other day. Do you want a half A 2 things or whole A 1 thing? And I love that
Yeah.
expression.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna whole A 1 thing.
Well, if those 2 things are related, it might help.
That's a rough one because so in woodworking, to finish, let's say a tabletop.
Right.
No one's looking at the bottom of the table.
But do you finish the bottom?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially just workmanship.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And what the weird part also is that if you were to seal just the top of the table, it's going to bow like crazy because that seals off the moisture absorption.
Sure.
So it'll absorb moisture from the bottom and it'll just potato chip on
I
you.
actually had a question about
So,
that.
you have to finish
We
both.
were at Tamari, and they were insanely busy.
Yesterday?
No, it was last week. Oh, it was we went for my birthday, and we ended up going to Yoshino's. And we're sitting there in Tamara, and they have the big benches and the live edge and the big old stumps that are whatever, lacquered, varnished, whatever. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, how do you varnish the whole thing? Like, do you have like a rotating rotisserie that you put it on, and then how do you?
What do you mean?
Did they do the bottom too?
Yeah. But
How do you do that?
Would you
just
just paint it?
Yeah, you just spray it.
But how are you not getting it
Wait,
on your
let it
hands?
dry?
It's a massive stump. So is it on like a?
What'd you do in sections?
Oh yeah. You just do it in sections.
Oh, in sections.
Yeah, you can flip it and do all that stuff.
What is
Just
going
let it
on with
dry.
you today?
I didn't know. I had
is
no idea. I
happening?
thought because for layering it, to lacquer it, it'd be like one
it dry and
one
flip it
layer.
No. You do it in sections and do it. In
How do you do it without
Oh.
touching your hands? Don't do it all at once.
on a
See, I thought you did it all at once.
on a super weird side note? I just got a job to do a sign, and the entire wall is going to be made out of salt.
Oh, wow.
Big bricks of salt.
Wow.
Oh, like the pink salt?
So the picture we saw was Himalayan pink salt, and we're actually going with white bricks because we're going to do some colored lights behind this big steel sign. But I was like,
It's an
dude, I'd never
outdoor
seen
sign?
it before. No, it's indoors. Salt outdoors might be bad.
I've seen
I was
salt
going to say, you have
lamps.
to seal over it? I don't know.
No. It is but bricks, they're about the size of a normal brick.
But just curious, if you touch them, wouldn't some of it fall off?
It's like baked, isn't it? Isn't it like
yeah,
cured?
It is.
But still, though, wouldn't like?
no,
if
you
I-
could walk up to it with a chisel and chisel off some
But if
salt.
I just
you
rubbed
wanted
it, would
to.
it some salt fall off?
Oh, please tell me.
No, it's hard. Like
Okay.
it's like a stone. It's like a
Okay.
rock.
I would totally bring my dog to that business.
I know.
And then just
Oh,
keep
gross.
bringing dogs.
Gross.
We joked
in the
about
walls.
the install, and I'm going to be
yeah.
Yeah.
the whole time. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought it was so
so-
cool because I saw it's a giant wall of salt. I
Yeah.
was like, this is amazing.
So, are you decorating the whole tree or not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I am.
100% the whole tree.
Yeah.
In fact,
And because I don't think you wouldn't not see it. I think you would be able to see all.
Yeah.
Even so, the top that tapers in, you got to at least decorate that.
Yeah.
Because you're going to see that part. Maybe
Yeah.
the bottoms. And I'm like,
You know
at that
what?
point, if it's just a tiny bottom section,
And
I'm
it
like,
is
that's
right next
decorated.
to a window, so the reflection on the backside.
Yeah.
And so, you probably see 4/5 of the tree.
Yeah.
There's a sliver in the corner that you probably won't get to
I'm
a vantage
decorating
point.
it. Yeah,
Well, we still did.
The
I
whole
just
thing.
thought why?
But yeah, why?
Why?
Why not be efficient? Yeah, no, I get you. I read you. That's funny.
horrible.
All right,
Anyway.
one last one. Would you rather live in a world with only new books, movies, music, or TV?
So like the minute it's new, you saw it, then you can never watch it again. Is that the concept?
No. It's the only thing that's being made are books, movies, TV, or music, or video games.
As
Basically,
opposed to
so nobody's writing new books. If you pick video games, there'll be no new movies, no new books.
movies,
no-
no more
you have
new
to
books.
pick one of those
those-
medias.
The
Okay,
only
all
one
right.
everything else is staying right where it's at. and then they are making new of something else?
I would probably pick movies out of all of those things.
What? Why are you laughing at that?
Because I would choose movies too, but I write music, so I'd be
Right.
like, "That's a beautiful." Boop. Oh, where'd it go?
Oh, darn it.
Dang it.
I think it's I would wrestle
think I
between
pick
TV
movies.
shows and movies, but I'd say movies.
Yeah.
Because I like that something could just be resolved. Sometimes watching TV, you're just like, I just want to know how this ends. It's got 13 more seasons.
Yeah.
So something about movies, at least, are like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll have a beginning, we'll have an end.
Yeah.
That actually feels good.
And I mean new, like original.
yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone who's making movies.
You want to know a mistake?
Oh, wow,
A
that's
mistake I just
pointed.
made? I started rewatching Lost.
Oh, why'd you do that? You know how it's going to end.
I can't remember. So I was intrigued, and I was like, yeah, I can't remember exactly what happened. I know vaguely. And I told Ashley, I was like, yeah, I started watching Lost. And she's like, oh, and she got so mad at me. She's like, that's the worst show. That show's so dumb. And I was like, oh, gosh. I didn't know she was so passionate about how much she hates that. And then I was like, really? Like, what? And then she spoiled the end again. And I went, oh, yeah, it is real bad.
Yeah.
That's real dumb.
That's hard, though, because
Yeah.
Game of Thrones had a horrible last season. I still love Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Not even just
We've
last
been
episode, last season.
We've been watching a show called From, and it's like people
I've
get
seen it. yeah.
stranded.
I've seen the trailers.
We've watched. We're a couple seasons in now, and it's just
Is it reality
it's like,
or is it a?
no, it's like
scripted.
supernatural kind of thing.
Oh.
And they get people from wherever they're going, get stranded in this one town, and they can't leave it. And at nighttime, these creatures that are impersonating people
Hey.
are wanting to eat them. And so,
course.
but
What
then,
else are those
and so
creatures
that
gonna
seems simple, right? Straightforward. And they have like these little wooden talismans they put up on the wall that keeps the creatures out. But then
Seems
there are
easy.
these decisions that are made, and you're like, okay, where are these creatures from? Why do these talismans work? How do you get out of the town? And they throw all this stuff in, just like Lost. That does not make it. Just adds more
Ridiculous.
questions, and so it's kind of frustrating, but it's enough to keep you. Well, I'm kind of hooked. I still want to see.
So many of these do that where I get
Horrible.
hooked.
Maybe the next episode will bring resolve.
No, it never does. Have you guys watched Hellbound
No.
on Netflix? I want to say it's one of the Korean ones. It's dubbed. So randomly in the world, I think it is some sort of being like an angel, but it's this floating head. They don't know anything about it. Appears to you and says, in 1 year's time, on October whatever 2025, at this time you're going to die. And what happens is these demons come up from out of the ground and take you.
Nice.
And then people are just trying to figure out why. What did this person do? And then there's this whole cult that rises up that tries to stop them. And
Christians.
no, and it's kind of got this fun. They just did, I think season 2 or 3 just came out, and I just started watching
It's
it.
a Korean show.
Yeah. Oh. Because I watched the first 1 or 2 seasons, and it's just intriguing because my only problem is it's just like what you described. I know as much after 3 seasons than I do at the first episode. So I'm like, what is happening?
And plus, there's things they do in the beginning episodes that get you hooked. Like, oh wow, that was original, or that that got me.
We're gonna repeat that trope for the entire.
But it's like, it's this show lost those things.
Wow.
So I'm like, it's been 3 episodes.
Oh, I
I
didn't know
haven't
they
seen.
lost it.
I haven't seen Creatures.
Oh no, that's terrible.
I haven't. Hasn't been any. It's all
I'm out.
drama and
No.
and side character relation monologues.
Yeah.
And I'm
this
ugh.
has the demons. They even show them more and more as the episodes go
Right.
on. So you're getting good looks at these awesome. They're so cool.
And
They've done them
sometimes
so well.
And sometimes that can be done in a way where it's like, well, now there's no more mystery or scariness
no, they do
about them.
because it stays quick.
Okay.
They never like stop and you get a great look at them. But you do see more and more and piece it together.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it.
This feels like a really good conversation off podcast.
I thought that, but then I thought nobody's still watching, so
right.
it doesn't matter.
That's fine.
That's
Someone's
kind of
still
what I
watching.
figured.
And we thank you. And on that note, welcome to You Won't Hate It. That was You Won't Hate It.
No. Let's start over. Welcome to. I'm Ryan. Let's just from the top.
And on that note, thank you for joining us on You Won't Hate It. I'm Josh.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Joe.